So I'm going to spray into the cracks very, very gently, because some of this old mortar is soft enough that you can actually, with even a garden hose, you can spray it right out between the joints. As you can see there, it starts cracking off just like that. So if you're not planning to replace that section, you should just kind of leave it alone and focus on the places that you are going to be replacing, just very lightly. See how if it's really if it's in bad shape, it'll just literally come flaking out, and so you have to be very careful about not applying too much water pressure in there, and that'll make a nice clean surface and a moist surface for the new mortar to adhere to. And that's something that, if you're going to do the whole wall, of course you want to do this one little bit at a time so that the wall itself still has structural integrity. But if you're going to do the whole wall or the whole section, you might want to do this the day before you plan to mortar first, to get the major chunks out of the way, because the water is going to accumulate at the bottom of the trench and form a puddle to stand in. So I generally would do this the night before, and then dampen it the day you're planning to actually do the mortar. Some foundation repair specialists actually mention or estimated work for this wall to kind of bring it back to, I guess, a waterproof and rodent resistant surface, and their initial proposal was to literally put a thin layer either of parging along the whole wall, or to pour a very thin, 2, 3, 4 inch wall of concrete along the entire base of the building. The estimates were $10,000 or something, and I found out from the Hunt Heritage and Toronto Masonry Repairs and a little research online that is just the absolute wrong thing you can do for an old fieldstone foundation like this. If you don't have water in the basement, of course water can come from all kinds of sources and have its own processes and challenges for getting it out of a basement. You end up with some pumps and weeping tile internally and externally, but as long as your basement is dry, if you're just trying to kind of bring a stone wall back into shape, if you put concrete along it, then the wall can't breathe and it can't release its moisture, and it starts cracking even worse. And the very, very hard concrete, in fact, in the end, does more damage than good to the wall. And of course, that's extremely time-consuming and costly to remove eventually, if you decide that either the wall needs to be repaired again, or worst case scenario, replaced and underpinned, and your foundation starts to have structural issues. So a word of warning: don't just go ahead and put concrete or parging on a wall like this. Make sure that you consult with a historical. If your house is over 100 years old, you consult with some kind of historical or heritage mason about options, and the right kind of mortar is really important. And concrete is, generally speaking, in its pure Portland cement mortar form, the stuff you can just buy at an average hardware store, bad for these walls. So look for natural hydraulic lime, and talk to an expert that knows what kind of mortars to use on historic buildings.